'Tis the season to listen to some Big Finish Christmas stories, and Big Finish have provided this year with a whole box set worth of them for the Eighth Doctor, his new friend Audacity, and a surprise return of Charley. Yes, this was the big cliffhanger from Audacity, the box set last month, isn't it?
It is. We had the Great Cyber War, and we thought that was a treat, and then we had the final 5 minutes of that, and we have Charlie appear. So we've got a new TARDIS team trio.
Yeah, Big Finish are loving their trios, aren't they? And we've done two videos on this topic already, haven't we? Our
Yeah, we have.
review of Audacity itself, and then that cliffhanger was so exciting that we just had to do a video all of its own for that. And I mean, Big Finish kept it close to their chest for quite a while, didn't they? Before finally updating the In the Bleak Midwinter cover
Yeah, they
with
kept
the
teasing.
Nutcracker Charlie.
Yeah, yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, they did keep teasing out on Twitter, didn't they? But we've now had this box set out. Came out very early in the month of
It was,
December.
yeah, I think it was like the fifth, was it?
Yeah, it was. I've sort of like been rationing it out over the month as I get feeling more and more Christmassy as time goes on. Yeah, it's rather a wonderful box set, really. I think this has been a solid run for the Eighth Doctor this year, throughout
Yeah,
Audacity and now in the Bleak Midwinter.
I would say McGann's possibly the strongest, had the strongest year for the Doctors.
Hmm.
Like
Uh,
last year, actually. Last year was a really good run for him, I'd say in particular.
Yeah, McGann's been on a roll lately, really.
Yeah, you
And
can't go wrong with it, I would say.
yeah, and now we're back with TV movie McGann. And he feels very right for Christmas, I will say. Maybe it's like the chimes of midnight effect.
Yeah.
When you're first getting into Big Finish, everyone's recommending you that. And so it makes McGann feel more and more Christmassy. And he's had quite a few Christmas specials, throughout Ravenous 2, you had Better Watch Out and Fairy Tale of Salzburg.
You had Death in Blackpool,
Yeah,
Relative Dimensions.
yeah,
He
indeed.
is the Christmas Doctor of Big Finish, and I think the first story, 24 Doors in December, really encapsulates McGann's love for Christmas. Or the Eighth
Mm,
Doctor, I should say. So, what do we make of this one by John Dorney?
yeah. I mean, it is wonderful to hear the Eighth Doctor so excited about Christmas, isn't it? It's a bit
Yeah.
bit like Stranded, although they're not stuck at Baker Street this time. They're just there to spend the whole month. The TARDIS has coincidentally landed on the 1st of December. And so they think, why not actually enjoy it in order? Because Christmas isn't just about the day itself, it's about that build up and anticipation. And so this is a story very much about that. You got the Baker Street Advent calendar brought out. Charlie and Audacity get a chance to get to know each other. They make some pudding together because Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without a bit of pudding.
Yes, yes.
Uh, and meanwhile, you have dear old Santa Al, who is a department store Santa going through a bit of a rough time, and he's suddenly started experiencing some visions that are leading him on a bit of a collision course with our main trio. Now, and I mean, Santarel's very much the heart and focus of this story, isn't he?
Yes, and how they intertwine with the Doctor Charlie and Audacity is because the Doctor wants to throw a Christmas party for the Children's Hospital, and he wants to hire out Santa's grotto at Baker Street so that they can have this jolly Christmas party.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, it's wonderful hearing the Eighth Doctor that excited about it as well through, you know, the children, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and
About how
that's
they add to the magic of this time of year. And as someone who works with children, I can definitely agree with that.
yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think Santarel, you do sort of feel sorry for him because he's kind of this tragic character. He's not because he's from Wolverhampton, which is pretty tragic in itself.
Mm.
Um, but he's fallen on sort of hard times, and this is sort of the thing that sort of keeps him going, really.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, there are some darker moments with that as times get even harder for him as the month progresses. Because I think it is also important to note that this time of year isn't the best for everyone. Like,
Yeah.
Christmas is sadly a time when suicide rates do go up a bit. And also, especially now with cost of living crisis, heating bills are soaring through the roof. And, as the nights draw in, as, it gets a lot colder, it will be a tough time for some people, sadly.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's important to, I think, remember that this Christmas while we're, enjoying ourselves in the warmth for those of us that are. That not everyone is as fortunate. And that's sort of like shown through Santa, Owl, and his sidekick, his elf,
Yeah.
yeah, Suzanne, that, you know, they are struggling to scrape by really in this tough time. And I think it makes for quite a wholesome story, and it's very Hallmark Christmassy, isn't it? It's sort
Yeah.
of going for.
Yeah, it sort of has a little bit of Death and Blackpool in there, but I think it reminds me quite a bit of sort of an Inside Number 9 type
Oh.
thing. What you'd see with Steve Pemberton and Reece Shearsmith, it has that sort of feel to it, with its sort of structure. So yeah, if you like that, then you'll probably get a kick out of this. And I think what I like about this story is the character. I think this is the thing with this box. Is great with the characterization, but I think that this is the Doctor's story, and it sort of ticks all the sort of boxes as it sort of ties in with the early Charley stories, with sort of the anti-time arc, which is quite nice for early Big Finish fans.
Yeah. And I mean, Audacity herself, the new character, is, from quite a while back in time, like over 200 years ago, or around 200 years ago. And so she is, someone who, again, similar to Leela, like, her speech patterns feel quite similar there.
Yeah, she has
And
some nice jibs at pop culture. Like, why would you want it to be Christmas every day? Who is this wizard? Stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah, she very much gets to look at the Christmas traditions that we now just don't quite question.
Yeah,
And
the
sort
more
of point out the
commercial
almost,
aspect of it. Yeah,
the absurdity of some of them, which is quite fun because there's a lot of things that we just, accept that are a bit weird when you actually sit down and analyze them. And so there's some good comedy there with her from that perspective that feels nice and true to her character. And I think it is very much, showing that her and Charley, despite both being quite prim and proper women from the past, do come from very different eras at the same time. I think I am quite liking them as a trio so far.
Yeah.
But it's a bit of a shame at the same time that this first story of them as a trio proper. We had Charley for the last 5 minutes of the Great Cyber War, but this is their first time together, and we don't get to focus on them too much. It's more Santa Owl's story,
yeah,
and I think that works for the story that's being told here. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like I'd rather be getting to know these characters together as they're getting to know each other. It does feel like maybe we miss out a bit on that early interaction, but it is made up for in the later stories somewhat. And the next one is another Tim Foley spooktacular this time.
yes,
The Empty Man. These are Christmas stories, but it's not the same kind of Christmas story each time. It's very much looking at
different flavors.
different flavors of cozy listening by the fire. And this is a ghost story, in that M.R. James tradition, about a character called Eldritch Brinkwood, played by the wonderful Nicholas Grace, who is a writer of scary stories who reads them aloud on the radio. And suddenly he is chased by something from one of his own scary stories, it would appear. And yeah, it just throws you right in, really, doesn't it? It's a one-part story. You open with Eldritch
Reading
performing one of
sort
his
yeah.
radio
It's immersive in
scripts.
that way.
Mm. And then you're thrown right into it with all the spooky stuff at the recording studio and the doctor turning up, or broadcast studio rather, because it's not quite recording in
Mm,
this. It's set, post-war time
yeah.
and post Second World War, that is. And yeah, it's rather a lovely story. My favorite of the box set, I would say.
I agree. I think that it has everything you want. It's got great sort of spook and horror, and the character works, I think, at its best with Audacity learning about world wars and
Mm,
how Charlie sort of become au fait with it. And she's like, how can you be like this?
yeah, it's sort of showing that, sometimes travel with the Doctor for a while can make you detached from this sort of stuff. And it's rather wonderful to have Audacity there as this big sister character for Charlie to sort of bring her down to earth a little sometimes.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's a story about attachment, about life, I
Mm,
think, and how we use our time.
yeah, that is very much at the heart of this one through Eldritch Brinkwood himself, who is, speaking of character work, has a lot of great material given to him there.
Very
And,
colourful dialogue as well, I'd say.
yeah, definitely. And sort of a good foil for this somewhat absurd trio who have come
Yes.
to rescue him. Yeah, and certainly some spine-chilling moments throughout this one.
Yes, especially when we get to I think the last sort of location, the sort of the house, and you have the empty man just sort of taunting Eldridge, which is beautiful. Beautifully scary. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go too in depth with this one without spoiling too much,
yeah.
but yeah,
Um,
definitely my favorite of the box set. I feel like it loses itself a little bit towards the end for me, like in terms of how it's resolved.
yeah, the
I
last sort of
felt a little
15
bit,
minutes feels
yeah,
like we've got to wrap it up.
yeah, I felt a little bit unsatisfied by the resolution,
Mhm.
but never, I don't, just from like a s- horror story perspective, I suppose. Like I feel like
Yeah.
it loses that. But the same from a character perspective, I feel like it does work at the same time. So I'm conflicted
It's
because
that
I
sort
can
of
see why they've gone in this direction. I
it's
think it
that
works for the character.
it's sort of that Stones of Blood effect, isn't it? As soon as you introduce a sci-fi element to a horror thing, it loses
Yeah, it's like
everything, doesn't it?
it's when it's explained, it's suddenly a lot less scary than it
Hmm.
perhaps once was.
Um, but I
And
I I admire this because it sort of links back to Charlie. With the Doctor sort of hiding sort of the implications of Charlie with the Web of Time stuff. So I appreciate that as an early Eighth Doctor Big Finish fan to have that sort
yeah.
of callback to why he saved her.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, imagine that all come into play throughout the
Mhm.
box sets as they go on, because Audacity isn't someone to let things go,
Hmm.
and that's a interesting tease. And it's good to have that old arc that has been resolved already, but being brought back to for more emotional impact.
Yeah, and I think it gives people chance to go back or explore the back catalogue. And if you want to know what happened, then there's this arc you can check out. I think it's a great way of sort of being a refresh, but also honouring the past work Big Finish have done. Because it's only right that they can be a little bit nostalgic themselves with their back catalogue now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been over 20 years since that arc started at this point, which is crazy. I mean, when you think about it, that's longer than the time between when Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred picked up their characters for Big Finish and carried on that,
Hmm.
from the TV show. I mean, same for the Sixth Doctor, perhaps as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is, and perhaps even Fifth Doctor, actually, coming to think about it. So yeah, that's wild. I think that the gap between Big Finish's early years and now is longer than Big Finish's early years and the TV series coming to a close.
Yeah.
But yeah, they are classics within their own right, and I think Big Finish has earned the right, especially with how monolithic some of those classics are, like Chimes of Midnight, to go back and mine its own past for nostalgia. And I'm sure at the same time, people will be diving into this as their first experience of Charley.
Yeah, which is wild.
I mean, hopefully still finding joy in her character. And it's lovely that India Fisher has now got a proper ongoing series to her name again.
Yeah.
Because, we've had the Charlotte Pollard's Further Adventuress box set, but that felt like a one-off special thing. Whereas now, alongside Audacity, this new trio, it feels like she is a proper part of Big Finish going forward, rather than just being there as a callback to the past.
I mean, speaking of Charley,
we have still got one more story in this box set to go.
A story that deals with Charley quite a bit and gets some great sort of character work in the form of love with a soldier from sort of Edinburgh Castle Barrack. It is Winter of the Demon by Roy Gill.
Yes, indeed. And I mean, you're quite a big fan of Edinburgh at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah. I went there in October and I fell in love with it. So I was really excited about this story, and I did get a kick going, I was there. That was cool.
It certainly would have helped you visualize a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Because this is our second Edinburgh story of the year, our first being Jamie from James Robert McCrimmon. But yeah, this is probably the weakest of the set for me, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm not. Like Empty Man is definitely the strongest, but at 24, it's between 24 Doors in December and this, and neither of them are bad.
Yeah, I still enjoyed this one. I just think this one is overstuffed and probably could have worked better as a two-parter.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I think it gets off to a flying start. Like, it hits the ground running pacing-wise, and I feel like, how it dives into that, you've got quite a few scares as the doctor's investigating, some deaths seemingly connected to electricity.
Feels very Jago and Lightfoot, which I appreciate.
There's this industrialist called Donald Shaw who is planning to transform the city of Edinburgh using electric light,
an industrial hub, isn't he, for like scientific frontiers?
Yeah, and there's some mysterious deaths going on around that, of people being found horribly burned. And I mean, that just sets up such a wonderfully creepy premise for a story, really. And I think it gets a good bit of mileage out of that in the first half. But then there's a flip halfway through. Again, Stones of Blood-esque, but I think even that comparison's even more apt for this story. And I feel like it was the second half where it sadly... It didn't lose me at all. Like, I was still engaged and I still found it quite interesting. But it wasn't the story I was expecting. It wasn't the story I felt like I was getting during the first half.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And yeah, it just sort of feels like a bit run of the mill. Okay, let's wrap this up now, which is a shame because it was a very strong first half. Like, I was really enjoying that. I think Audacity gets some great material as she sort of has verbal spars with Donald Shaw, about, because her character is very much about fighting injustice and going against the privilege that a lot of people have. And she's sort of calling him out for fighting the effects rather than dealing with the cause. And yeah, it's wonderful to see that part of her character brought back in this story. And, she's paired up with the Doctor for a lot of this one. Charley's paired up with her little soul, her dolly soldier,
Archie.
as a callback to the invasion. Yes, dear old Archie. Uh, and, I think it works out quite well structure-wise through that. And as I say, early on, it flies through a good bit of setup without feeling rushed at all. Yeah, but yeah, it's hard to say exactly why. But during the second half, there's a specific moment. I remember you were talking to me about it because you listened to it first.
Yeah.
And as soon as I got to that moment, I was like, I see what he meant now when he said it's not the story you expect.
Yeah. It flips everything you know, but not in the direction you want it to go.
No. And then it just sort of carries on and ends, and you just left a little bit disappointed by more what could have been rather than
Yeah.
what actually is, because I don't think what actually is
I
at all
think
bad.
I think the idea is great, and
Mm.
how it sort of it incorporates the title of the box set with the winter solstice, and I think that's really cool idea to sort of
Yeah.
circle a story around that.
Mm. Yeah. It's just sort of a shame that it didn't quite live up to what we were perhaps hoping it would do.
I mean, with the title "Winter of the Demon," you think, "Cool, this is going to be something big and great," and it is for the first half.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I don't want to take away from that because I think it is a very strong first half. Like, I was thinking, oh, this might be my favorite of the box, actually.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't. Yeah, it feels like that second half feels worse than it actually is just because of that drop.
Yeah.
Whereas if it had been the quality of the second half throughout, I probably wouldn't be complaining about it as much. I think I probably would have, enjoyed it as just a solid Eighth Doctor story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what would you give 24 Doors in December out of 10?
I'd give that a nice 8 out of 10.
I think I'd go for a 7.
Okay.
Empty Man?
Because it's Christmas, I feel like I want to give it a 10, but I'll be reasonable. Go 9.5.
Oh, wow, you really enjoyed that one.
I really enjoyed it. Really did.
I'd go for a good 8. I think for that one for me. Maybe 8.5. Yeah, you know
It's
what?
Christmas.
Generous, 8.5. Winter of the Demon?
6 or 7?
I'm being generous and going 7 for that
I'll
one.
go 7 then.
Because again, I can't decide between that and 24 Doors in December. I think they're both on a 7. Yeah, so overall box set for me would be a 7.5, I suppose.
I'd say a solid 8 for this set.
Yeah, 7.5 or 8. So I do feel like it's one of those ones where the whole is better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, 3 Christmas stories, this time of year, you can't go too far wrong with that.
Yeah, and I think the McGann sets, like we said earlier, if you're gonna get it, bundle it, you'll have a great time with these 2 box sets. I think they are some of the strongest output of the year.
Yeah, I think definitely worth getting both this and Audacity. I mean, do you prefer In the Bleak Midwinter to Audacity?
I think so.
Yeah,
I enjoyed both stories a lot in Audacity.
Yeah, I'm still Team Audacity. Mainly thanks to Great Cyber War, and that being an epic 2-parter as well. I think that one blew me away. That's everything I want Big Finish to be and more. Just, so much love for that story. Definitely worth picking up that box set for that story alone. I would say, I think maybe the Devouring is my least favorite of the 5 stories. Just about. But at the same time, it's still a strong story.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing that feels like a dud throughout these 2 box sets.
Oh no, there's always stuff to find and enjoy with all the stories.
Yeah, and I think especially worth getting it just to see Audacity's journey so far, really. And hopefully, long may it continue. I'm definitely looking forward to where Big Finish take this trio next.
Me too.
Yeah. So, all that's left to say is Merry Christmas, everyone, I suppose. It feels right to say that for a Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Raise a toast, raise your hot chocolate by the fire.
Or mulled wine, whatever you're on.
Yeah, and enjoy some McGann for Christmas because he feels like a very Christmassy Doctor. I think he's got that voice that's perfect for radio,
Yes.
and there's just something warm and soothing about listening to it. But, so please do leave a like on this video if you've enjoyed our review of In the Bleak Midwinter. If you've listened, leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought of it.
What's your favourite story?
Yes, please do share. We'd love to hear from you. And subscribe as well if you want to watch some more of our
Big Finish
reviews.
content.
And yeah, loads of Big Finish content. Maybe some Christmas recommendations are out there as well for you to check out. Because this isn't the only Christmas Big Finish release out there. This isn't even the only Eighth Doctor Big Finish
Like we mentioned, there's a fair
Christmas
few.
release. Yeah. So please do check that out. Check out any other stuff that takes your fancy, really. And we'll see you wherever you
Whatever
choose to
next.
watch us next. Yeah. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.